We have had planned to talk about the experience of our earlier projects in Framework 7 and Horizon 2020, and you will see that they have a very tight connection with the topic of today, to restore oceans and waters. So you can find us here at www.waterinsight.nl or info@waterinsight.nl. So Water Insight is a small company. We exist already for 17 years. We are specialized in optical remote sensing for water quality. I think we are always working on the boundary of the edge of science and applications, and try to combine those and bring them to really new and viable applications that are relevant for users. We provide Earth observation-based mapping services, currently mostly based on Sentinel-2, Sentinel-3, and exploring the realm of very high resolution. We built our own monitoring instruments. This is a handheld spectrometer where you can measure the remote sensing reflectance of water. This one is already in production for quite some years, and we have a database of over 100,000 measurements of all over the world of water remote sensing reflectance. This is a fixed position instrument, a WISP station. You can put that on a pole or a floating platform and measure the remote sensing reflectance, which is very handy, for instance, for calibration of satellite images, validation of products, and calibration of atmosphere correction. I'll come to that later again. So we also offer remote sensing satellite services. This is, for instance, an example of a lake in the Netherlands where this artificial island was being built, and you see the sediment plumes spreading through the lake as a result of the dredging operations. So, and one of the things that we actually really liked in European projects that's very important is the interaction between fellow scientists and the users. I'll show examples of that in the coming slides. So we have some experience with a number of projects. We have been coordinator of several projects, smaller projects, mainly in the downstream area of Framework 7. Currently, we are still involved in the projects eShape and Waterforce, both as partner. I'm going to show some examples of a number of projects that are relevant for the topic. One is from the project Aqua Users. One of the things of European projects that you can get to invent nice acronyms, of course, and also interesting stuff like mugs and heads with a logo on it and everything. But that on the side. Aquaculture user-driven operational remote sensing information services was dealing with selection of sites for aquaculture and for timely warnings for everything that would threaten the daily management of aquaculture operations. One of the things that was made, that was a web system by Plymouth Marine Laboratory, where you can see harmful algal blooms coming closer to wherever your operation is. And the other thing that was developed was a decision support system where you can see the data that's coming in, like chlorophyll from satellite images, how that data compares to the already known values in that area. The decision that people make about when knowing about this data, and then the review of this data. And the idea was that we get a kind of decision support system with a lot of decisions made, and then machine learning would tell a user, okay, you've made this decision in the past based on this information. Now we would suggest that you do this. We didn't get completely there, but the idea was, I think, very good. Then there was the GLASS project, which means Global Lakes Sentinel Services. The GLASS project was intended to show the use of Sentinel-2 and Sentinel-3 for the monitoring of lakes and mostly inland waters. Unfortunately, the Sentinel-2 was launched later than the start of the project. But we caught up in the middle and we made a lot of training materials to show how the processing of these satellite images is done. And these still exist and can be requested through me or Annelies Andersson, also in this call. And a large emphasis was placed on the validation protocols of inland water remote sensing. And we made a strong contribution to the international group that is dealing with water remote sensing, especially in the waters, which is the GeoAquaWatch group. Then there was the dotSPACE project, the tools for assessment and planning of aquaculture sustainability. One of the problems that the EU identified is that it's very difficult for new companies to get a license for starting up a new aquaculture operations. So the dotSPACE project had as objective to make a decision support system that can help you to acquire a license for this operation, and then also based on the data that is available, so that you can see if it will be a viable operation. So you can select also a site where there's enough feed for instance, salmon, because of the availability of algae in the water. A project that we finalized not so long ago is EOMORIS. That stands for Earth Observation-Based Services for Monitoring and Reporting of Ecological Status. Well, at that time, the availability of Sentinel-2 and Sentinel-3 was good. And with the international partners, we studied the monitoring of algae, the monitoring of macrophytes in the lake in Italy, monitoring of the occurrence of cyanobacteria, and well, all these other things that I mentioned here. And what is interesting of this project is that you can find some very relevant publications still. This is the product and service portfolio. You can find it at this website location. And then there is the validation report that reports in detail the validation of all these products that I mentioned in this service portfolio. And then maybe even more important, this is what we call the white paper. It's a white paper that was written by this project and another project, COSTOPS, with recommendations for the European Union to make sure that Earth observation data can actually be used by operational service providers and by national governments, because there's a disconnect between let's say the stimulation of Earth observation services and the take-up from the national and the governments and the European Commission. So I would advise you to have a peek at it. Especially if you're going to write proposals that take all of this a step further. Currently, we are involved in the E-Shape project, but only on a small pilot, where we look at Water Framework Directive reporting. Water Framework Directive is a European guideline that says that all European waters at a certain time have to reach a good or a very good ecological state. We could show, based on Earth observation, this is an example for one day, that the ecological status in a lake in the northern part of the Netherlands is overall very good, but here and there it's really bad. And if you compare that with what the national management measures, they measure here in this point and there in that point. So they would always conclude that the Water Framework Directive status is very good, which is beneficial for a national image. But it's not good if you want to manage this lake. So that's also a benefit of Earth observation. It shows you the effectiveness of the location of monitoring network points. So, one of the projects that we recently finished as well was the COSTOPS project. It dealt about making operational products that are relevant in the coastal waters. It was in close collaboration with users in Spain, in Italy, in the Netherlands, and in France. In Spain, we looked at the timely warning for harmful algal blooms. In France, we looked at monitoring of seagrasses. I'll show an example of that later. And in the Netherlands, as a company, we built a operational platform where we can deliver satellite-based maps to customers and users. And to give users a bit of an understanding of what this is all about, Leonardo, a Hungarian company, built a e-training platform together with everybody in the project to give an introduction to all the products and also to ocean color and to remote sensing. It's nice, so I would, there's also a quiz involved, so I would advise you to have a look at that as well. So some examples from that project was maps that we made in the west coast of Spain, around Vigo, which is a large production area of shellfish, which is continuously threatened by harmful algae. So that was a relevant product, we thought. Also, the growth potential for mussels based on the availability of green algae that they feed on. Those two products are made by models actually that are fed with remote sensing data as input. Another product was the mapping of intertidal seagrass. That is a really important biodiversity and ecological issue in Europe because seagrass can sequester a lot of carbon, but it has been declining for decades now. And it's also a habitat for numerous sea life species, so it is actually very important, but there's not that much of it left anymore, so the mapping of it is very important. And the last example is monitoring the sediment outflux of a river Plume here in the Loire in France, where we wanted to know if a dredging company is dredging for over here, for instance, if it would produce more sediment and turbidity than the background concentration that the river is producing itself. So some examples. I hope I didn't overwhelm you with all this information in a very short time. But anyway, so well, we also wanted to share some of the experience that we have as coordinators of projects. Probably this is still valid for a lot of projects proposal that you would write. So clarify in the plan and in the consortium agreement really what will happen after the project, and also what the handling of the intellectual property is during and after the project. We are really a big fan of monthly telecoms with the consortium because everybody is out there in Europe and you get to meet each other not that often. Well, the users is really an important story. They usually have no experience or cannot imagine what remote sensing can really bring to their operational activities. So involve them from the beginning, even as a partner if you can, and talk to them a lot. Well, those are the most important things. So we would be happy to really be a partner in a project that you envision. At the moment, we are not considering to write a proposal ourselves, but I think what we can bring to the table is our expertise in optical Earth observation, in validation of operational services and research and development. One important thing that we want to work on and with you a bit more is using in situ optical instruments. They can be used, as I said, for calibration and validation of satellite products, especially for instance, Sentinel-2, the atmospheric correction is still below par. So there's a lot of calibration validation necessary in the upcoming projects. You can also use the instruments for in situ monitoring, for instance, for cyanobacteria monitoring to know when swimming water has to be closed. And we can help you with project coordination. We have quite some experience with that. So we are interested in any project that deals with coastal waters and marine waters in general, in the water quality topic, of course, in the upcoming calls. And what I personally find very interesting is to think about innovative solutions for water quality in agriculture. So that will be a main topic. We've seen over the summer that a lot of inland waters are infested with blue algae. The effect on agriculture is not clear, but it should be investigated. But that's what I wanted to bring to you. Thank you for your attention.
Mute. Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Peters, for those insights. I think we have a little bit of time for a few questions, if that's okay with you. We don't have questions in the chat yet, but please, for everyone, if you do have questions for Dr. Peters about Water Insight and about the things that you've seen, please put them in the chat and we'll answer them. Let me ask you this first thing while we're still on this slide, because this is an interesting one, and this is obviously the objective of this call. What type of partners would be ideal for you, for example, for these two calls that you mentioned here, to make it a successful proposal?
Yeah, on the one hand, partners that are really looking into innovative solutions in terms of other products that can be derived from satellite information, or maybe the combination of optical and SAR information, or the combination of optical and thermal information. That is, from the background research perspective, that is very interesting. What we also notice more and more, that users are not per se interested in monitoring only. So, and I think the European Commission is that as well. So if we can, let's say, make a contribution to a project with partners that also has a solution or mitigation, or wants to monitor the effects of mitigation, for instance, of biomass removal or cyanobacteria removal, I think that would be very interesting for us, but also for the users at large.
Okay, very good. We have a question from Linda, and Linda, perhaps you can unmute yourself and ask the question yourself and explain a little bit what you mean, because I don't think all the viewers will know the difference between the RIA, the IA calls.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Well, the Commission is looking more and more for impact from projects. So I think Steef is making some good points in involving users, and also found your last point very very useful. So you have the research and innovation action, which is has more research activity in it, so like a lower technology readiness level, typically in the space domain. And the innovation action, which should have a more already demonstration in a real environment towards the market introduction. And I was wondering if Steef notices in the calls, I don't, for example, these two that you mentioned, I don't know what type they are. And do you have a preference for one or the other?
No, as I mentioned, we have a broad interest in the innovation actions and the RIA, I'm not sure, so the research and innovation actions are both interesting. There is a financial difference which might be interesting as well. And and anyway, in any project where we can help a consortium with our expertise, that is interesting for us.
Okay, thank you. I have one more question, and then I guess we'll move on to the next one. You showed us the Geonardo e-training for co-stops. Is that available publicly to anyone?
Yes, it is.
Okay, because that might be an interesting one. So yeah, if you could bring that slide back up real quick so people can see it.
I think Annelies can help us with putting the link in the chat.
Yes, thank you.
I will.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, well, with that, I'd like to thank you very much, Dr. Peters, for your contribution. And you're going to stay online, I take it, to talk to the attendees once we've through the presentation. So thank you very much for now.